You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights from the news today, Friday the 7th of December. Our countryside under threat and yet again our government ignores it. British woman raped in Dubai. Another takeaway and yes, another illegal deported. The agenda behind gender bending. Germany, the popular image of Islam is devastating. Foreign judges could rule that Britain's mass murderers have a human right to be set free. Nick Griffin, MEP, from the belly of a camel. White House silent as Egypt's president grabs power. South Africa still a hellhole for white farmers. Tsunami alert from Japanese earthquake. Thought for the day, abuse, publicity, and where do I start? And finally, rent a snake. UK news. The UK countryside is under threat in migrant surge. New houses will have to be built across Britain's countryside to provide homes for a mass influx of immigrants, an MP has warned. Further to our report on Monday of this, Tory backbencher Philip Hollobone used a Commons debate to raise concerns about a fresh surge of newcomers when border controls for Romanians and Bulgarians are relaxed next year. He estimated that around 270,000 people will head to Britain from the two new European Union countries in the 2 years from the border shake-up scheduled for next December. And he savaged the Home Office for failing to prepare for the potential threat to law and order and social cohesion from the incoming influx. The British people won't put up for this much longer, the MP said. I know through my humble experience as a special constable with British Transport Police on London's underground network that some 8 out of 10 shoplifters arrested by the police are from Eastern Europe. Mr Hollobone raised his concerns about the end of temporary restrictions on immigration controls from Bulgaria and Romania in a debate in Parliament's Westminster Hall Annex. He pointed out that 43% of new homes under construction were already likely accounted for as a result of population growth spurred by immigration. What we are going to see is swathes of our countryside built over to accommodate the millions of new arrivals from the European Union, over which we seemingly have little control, the MP said. The numbers are getting completely out of hand, he told MPs. My constituents will be horrified to learn that from next December yet another hole in Britain's border controls will be opened up with the prospect of unlimited immigration from Romania and Bulgaria. A British expatriate raped in Dubai. A 28-year-old woman who went for a drink at a local bar has been raped in Dubai. The drunken woman got into a taxi driven by a Pakistani taxi driver. He drove her to a cash point but she failed to get any money from the cash machine. The taxi was approached by 2 Iranians who had stopped alongside. The Iranians claimed they knew the woman and paid her fare. The helpless woman was bundled into their car and driven to an apartment where they were joined by a 3rd man. Over a period of several hours the woman was repeatedly raped by the 3 men who filmed the attack. 2 of the men are facing trial for rape, the 3rd cannot be traced. When she reported the attack to the police, she admitted she was drunk and was promptly prosecuted and fined £169 for drinking without a licence. Another illegal, another takeaway. Police and border agency officers swooped into Whitstable's Golden Moon and Cantonese takeaway to an illegal immigrant following a tip-off. The illegal Chinese immigrant who had come over here to soft-touch Britain on a visa to study had overstayed his visa. The 23-year-old now is being detained before his deportation. One World Date reporter commented, "This is what we want. People calling the police and getting these people out. A big campaign to undo all the damage that the lefties have done can be achieved by millions of true British people standing together." The agenda behind gender bending. We are now familiar with pro-homosexual bias both in the Western media and in the Anglo-American political elite. In the UK, increasingly media personalities and politicians openly promote the homosexual agenda. The stated aim for society is to accept that homosexual lifestyle is on a par with the traditional family paradigm. Anyone daring to question this assumption is attacked and branded as being outdated, hateful and offensive. The former Archbishop of Canterbury, Lord Carey, is the latest victim of such homosexual swarming. Even his former college, King's College London, is being pressured to remove his photograph from their famous alumni display. Sounds rather like Stalin's Russia, doesn't it? European news. Germany. The popular image of Islam is devastating. From a November survey conducted by the Allensbach Institute on behalf of Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, the popular image of Islam is devastating. Respondents were asked which of the 21 statements matched their view of Islam. 83% thought that Islam is dominated by the discrimination of women. 77% thought Islam is fundamentalist. 70% associated fanaticism and radicalisation with the Muslim faith. Significant majorities of the population attested to Islam also, among the other violence 64%, the tendency to revenge and retaliation 60%, and missionary zeal 56%, and the pursuit of political influence 56%. Charity took only 13% in conjunction with Islam. 12% thought the key word Islam to charity, and only 7% of openness and tolerance. It would make a mockery of justice, but foreign judges could rule that Britain's mass murderers have a human right to be set free. Tomorrow, 3 convicted murderers will argue before the European Court of Human Rights that their life sentences should no longer mean life, since this would amount to inhuman treatment, breaching their human rights. Never mind the inhuman treatment that these particularly foul murderers meted out to their victims. One of them, Douglas Vintner, killed a work colleague and when released on parole brutally stabbed his own wife to death. Yet this double murderer, who has served just 3 years of his second term, still petitions for his release. When the death penalty was abolished, Parliament said life should mean life for the most appalling of crimes. Our courts have upheld whole life tariffs. But a foreign court could overrule our own institutions and demand the release of killers, including the Moors murderer Ian Brady, the Yorkshire Ripper Peter Sutcliffe, Rosemary West and Levi Belfield, the killer of teenager Millie Dowler. The judges of the European Court narrowly rejected the murderer's first appeal by 4 votes to 3. Let's hope the court's final decision in its Grand Chamber is the same, because if it isn't, the government would have no choice but to comply. I now hand you over to Nick Griffin, MEP, who reports on a conference in Doha on global warming.
My World at 8 piece comes this week from Doha, the gigantic, and actually very impressive, building site that is the capital of the Arab Gulf state of Qatar. I've been here since Monday as part of the European Parliament delegation at COP18, in plain English, the 18th of the annual United Nations Climate Change Conferences. It's the second of these that I've attended, as I went to the 2009 one in Copenhagen. That was marked by one of the coldest Decembers on record in Denmark, with ice inches thick on the ornamental fountains, and the ice sculptures, displayed to illustrate global warming, resolutely refusing to melt. As a result, the organisers seem to have decided on a few years dodging anywhere that unseasonable cold could replicate that particular PR disaster, hence South Africa, Mexico, and now Qatar being the venues since. Far be it from me to note that all of them are renowned posh tourist destinations to boot. So while most of you are shivering and sliding in what looks set to be yet another inconveniently cold winter, spare a thought for the thousands of taxpayer-funded chatterers with their noses to the climate grindstone, out here in temperatures like an English summer mid-morning. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. There are, you'll be pleased to hear, far fewer climate chatterers doing it here than in previous years. The huge hall of display stands is almost empty, and many of the side event meetings, held in rooms that can seat 100, are only attracting a dozen or so diehards. You may have seen my tweets on Wednesday about one that was, unfortunately, all too well attended. This was a session entitled Sing for the Climate. If you think I'm making this up, you can log on to singfortheclimate.com to check that it's for real, and to see both the lyrics and the messianic fervor of those involved. Or you can take my word for it, perhaps just glancing at the photo of the true believers belting it out here in Doha. Sadly, they're not alone. Some 80,000 brainwashed Belgian juveniles of all ages were herded together to sing in what is described as the most successful and most creative climate campaign on mass mobilization. Entitled Do It Now, the first hymn of the new warming religion goes like this. No, don't turn off. I'm not going to sing it. We need to wake up. We need to wise up. We need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future, and we need to start right now. I gave the Doha Climate Song Workshop a miss, intending instead the forum next door on a genuinely useful effort, the Great Green Wall project, which aims to halt the southward march of the Sahara Desert by establishing a 10-mile wide reforested buffer zone stretching all the way from the west to the east coast of Africa. African delegates from 13 sub-Saharan nations were earnestly discussing a project that could really help millions of their people avoid having their livelihoods, homes and communities overwhelmed by sand, spreading largely as a result of generations of goats eating generations of tree saplings. Strangely, some seem not to share the European chairperson's enthusiasm for the repeated and ever more hysterically ecstatic chants of now, 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 thumping through the thin walls. It was the only real display of enthusiasm I came across in the entire conference. There are, of course, very powerful psychological, even physiological reasons for this. Human beings are hardwired to get religion. Watch, for example, the passion with which many atheists declaim the non-existence of God, every bit as committed to their faith as any born-again Christian. So, when a combination of an atheistic education system and the Marxist media bring up several generations without a God, it really shouldn't come as a surprise that their inbuilt human religiosity will sooner or later bubble to the surface. And here it is, as any evolutionary psychiatrist worth his salt would have been able to predict, the new cult for the new age. Or rather, one of the oldest religions, back wearing the pseudo-scientific costume required for credibility in a post-scientific society such as ours. Mother Earth is angry. We've transgressed against and offended her. If we do not make amends, warn her priests, the crops will fail, the animals will die, the seas will boil. An invisible demon will devastate our world. We are all doomed. Unless we atone for our sins. Unless we make appropriately extravagant sacrifices to Mother Earth. We must close down and smash up our most valuable and prized technological possessions. We must simplify our lives, deny ourselves the benefits and pleasures given to us by the evil tempter, carbon. We must plunge ourselves and our children into poverty. Note that, as usual, the high priests are exempt from the poverty bit. Pope Gore and Archbishop Osborne are still permitted high-carbon lifestyles. And anyone who dares to question the need to sacrifice so much on the altar of the new old deity must be howled down and driven into the wilderness. The insight that belief in man-made global warming is a cult rather than science explains far better than any conspiracy theory the reason why its adherents are not in the least bit affected by the simple, rational facts that would tell an unbrainwashed 6-year-old that the emperor has no clothes. Because the hallmark of genuine scientific theory is that it can be tested. And the hallmark of genuine scientists is that they welcome attempts to disprove their theory, since defending it against criticism eliminates weaknesses and success proves their thesis to be correct. This is not the case with the climate change cult, which avoids any inconvenient debate by brandishing a papal bull from Al Gore. The science is settled. Those who question the unquestionable orthodoxy are deniers who should be put on trial, according to Prince Charles, as climate criminals. The moment you come across facts that have to be defended by ad hominem attacks, or the persecution of those heretics who dare to question them, is the moment that you must realize that you are looking at religious dogmas and at profit for the prophets, rather than at scientific or historical truth. That is why, despite the fact that there has not been any global warming in their entire lives, thousands of Belgian 16-year-olds are chanting that, quote, we're on a planet that has a problem, we've got to solve it and get involved and do it now, 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 unquote. And why, in all probability, British 6-year-olds will soon come home from school singing from what is, quite literally, the same hymn sheet. Man-made global warming is just another in a long line of end-of-the-world catastrophe cults. As was so often the case, G.K. Chesterton summed it up. When people stop believing in God, They don't believe in nothing. They believe in anything.
Thank you, Nick. The only thing I envy you is the warm weather out there and camels. I really love camels. World news. White House silent as Egypt's president grabs power, moves towards Sharia Islamic law. White House officials remained silent during the extended Thanksgiving weekend as Egypt's pro-democracy groups called on President Barack Obama to condemn Thursday's power grab by their country's Islamist president Mohamed Morsi. Morsi decreed on November 22nd that his pronouncements and edicts were beyond the reach of judicial review. The announcement was met by resistance from the nation's top judges, who said they would fight Morsi's unusual self-elevation to near-dictator status. South African farmers still fear for their lives. On Saturday, in an unprecedented move to mark the second anniversary of the slaughter of a farming family, survivors of farm attacks marched on Pretoria and called for attacks in South Africa's mostly white farmers to be designated as crime of national priority. Since the attack on Ati Potgieter and his family, the simple stone farmhouse where they lived has stood empty and crumbling, with nobody wanting to live in the home where one of South Africa's most disturbingly brutal crimes took place. Mr Potgieter, a farm caretaker, was stabbed and hacked 151 times with a garden fork, a knife and a machete near Lindley in the Free State, the agricultural heart of the country. His wife Wilna and 2-year-old daughter Wilhelmine were both made to watch him die before being shot in the head execution style. In May 2011, farmers added 3 white crosses for the Potgieter family to the 2,000 already planted in Potgieterstraat in memory of the farmers killed in South Africa since 1994. This atrocity was racially motivated and is a drop in the ocean of the brutal and cold-blooded killing of Afrikaner farmers in South Africa. A World at 8 reporter adds, "If you've seen pictures of the 6 blacks arrested and tried, you would not believe that so-called civilization started in Africa. In fact, you would laugh at it." Tsunami alert follows Japanese earthquake. The Japanese government has warned today that a tsunami could happen at any time after a large earthquake shook buildings right across the country. The 7.3 magnitude earthquake shook northeast Japan and the tremors could be felt as far as Tokyo. Now what was that about Indonesia on Wednesday and a tsunami? USA warns Syria on use of chemical weapons. Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State in the United States, has warned the Syrian government over any possible use of chemical weapons to strike at Syrian rebels. Clinton made the warning during a sudden visit to Dubai this week, where she met with Russian Foreign Affairs Minister Sergei Lavrov to discuss the issue. Lakhdar Brahmini, the United Nations envoy to Syria, has also condemned the use of chemical weapons on the Syrian rebels. A World at 8 writer comments, "We have heard all this before. In the case of Saddam, there were reports early on, some time before the UN inspectors had years to inspect, of vats of chemical and biological sludge being kept in Iraq, but they had no means of dispersal, so were useless, and of course moved well in time. But Assad is not using chemical warfare against the rebels, but Clinton will boost this up to justify invasion or further interference in an Arab state. In fact, the most liberal Arab state existing now." Thought for the day: abuse, publicity and where do I start? My mind is working overtime on the unfairness of the huge publicity involved mushrooming out from the Jimmy's So Vile affair. Now we have Max Clifford, scion of the publicity machines, caught in it himself. Now call me odd, hard or ignorant, but what is the difference to the media on the following cases? A woman well past middle age who, when a teenager, went to a studio and got groped by a celebrity a bit older than herself. Remember that the BBC abuse cases are 40-odd years old. From my distant memory, to go to a pop studio and meet a celebrity was the thing, although not ever my thing. I believe most of these youngsters were up for it and enjoyed the kudos at the time. Although now of course a possibly large sum of money for fear and trauma and their ruined lives will prove an even bigger pull and jog their memories even more luridly. Second case scenario: a rather vulnerable 12-year-old trying to live the celebrity high life in a rather dismal northern town who thinks the local kebab takeaway is the height of sophistication and similar to the Arabian Nights, even if she hasn't read it. Blowjobs for chips are also not off the cards. Unfortunately, neither is grooming, rape, abortion, drugs, drink and possibly death. So who do the papers focus on? Got it in one, my friends, the BBC abuse cases. And if you notice it, the whole kit and caboodle of sexual abuse, which is a huge issue and has many factors and runs the racist and sexist divide, but not the religious one, is put together to the detriment of the true scandal, that of Muslim sexual underage grooming of non-Muslim children. It takes back seat, which is the reason why the papers will not let go of the BBC drama and its many, many offshoots. They will keep grabbing and arresting well-known figures that have had their hands up some poor unfortunate but grateful girl's skirt, or maybe more, and the TV news will be full of it. But will they just once do a news programme which includes the Muslim rapes correctly broadcasted and related? We all know the answer to that one. It is no. The same cowardice applies to the raping of our countryside for the benefit of Eastern European immigrants, and although the media will dare not say it, a goodly proportion of those would-be inhabitants will be from Africa and Southeast Asia. But of course, there again, it is a safe bet to highlight the European immigrants in favour of not offending the ethnic ones. Very soon it will be possible for a person of an ethnic majority to do practically anything and get away with it. They have all the cards needed, most of which have been handed to them on a plate from day one of landing on our shores. They have human rights, we don't. They have the judiciary and the police behind them, we don't. Some apparently have Allah and the New World Order on their side, we don't. Many have the right religion to allow sexual abuse and rape, we don't. They think ahead, we are not allowed to. They are allowed to congregate in vast numbers, we are not. They have the liberal lovies, the Marxists and all three political parties on board, we do not. They obtain vast quantities of land cheaply and apparently for no reason, certainly not to build houses on, where we cannot. They can claim benefits out of the wazoo whilst many cannot write to fill in the forms we are means tested by. I could go on forever. The list is endless and it's still growing as every month brings an unpublicised threat to us Brits and our communities. Or rather, in the case of Daily Mail, they do print certain problems but cannot print the solutions. Such is the way of life today in this country. We will have the news full of the royal pregnancy, congratulations, more hype in the government circles of less money for everyone, but apparently this does not affect the foreign aid budget, which is rising and no doubt will rise further to justify keeping England poor. If they stopped foreign aid tomorrow and stopped paying out for trash to keep coming into this country, we could be out of debt immediately with no further effect on our benefits and pensions. Will they do this? No, because it would make a stronger England. And they do not want this at all. They want us literally barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, like the old Deep South in the States, which of course originated from the north of our country. We must learn the lesson, not to elevate people beyond the status of their brains, which isn't far. Keep health and safety, unpaid. Keep council workers who strike for no reason, unpaid. Do not pay government agencies to pay people who come into this country for whatever reason. Tell teachers to start teaching correctly or else they will not get paid. In fact, this is the mantra for 2013. You should not get any money for being traitors to your own country and your own people. Print what you should, not what you've been told to, or no money for the national papers. The Marxists have already done away with Murdoch, who was pro-Republican and a capitalist, because a few liberal lovies got hacked, as if this has stopped this practice. In short, we must become more aggressive and organised in our lives and within our party, because we will not get help from anywhere but from the people we're trying to help but are being prevented from doing so. Publicity is a great propaganda tool and believe me, our enemies are using it to full effect. It is time the GBP and sheeples realised that all they read and all they see is only half the true picture. It is the unsaid that should be listened to. And finally, rent a snake. From Davie, Florida. Florida wildlife officials are fighting Burmese pythons with a contest offering $1,000 and $1,500 prizes for catching the snakes. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission said that the 2013 Python Challenge, which begins January, will offer $1,000 to the winners who catch the longest Burmese python on public hunting lands and $1,500 for the participant who catches the largest amount of the snakes, the South Florida Sun Sentinel reported Thursday. Officials said January the 12th will feature a day-long open house on the pythons and other invasive species at the University of Florida's Davie campus. This presenter states, "I just hope they'll look after the pythons when the brouhaha is done. The snakes are popular with poachers who take their skins while still alive and leave them, so it is a good news someone is looking out for them, if only for this reason." Snakeskin should be banned in the so-called fashion world. Their skin looks better on them than humans. They should have a Save a Snake Day. I admire snakes. They do not attack unless attacked. They are marvellous mothers and they look lovely. I am a fan of snakes. The larger the better. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozar and I and the team at World at 8 and Radio Britain wish you all a very happy, warm and safe weekend.